Welcome to Satsang. The last week or so I received some suggestions to talk about addictions. And and someone asked if you could do a video, complete Satsang on addiction. You know, it would really help us a lot because you had mentioned it in other videos, but very, very briefly. So then I retired into my silence, and what you're about to hear today has come through me, and I hope you don't have to accept it because it's me saying it, but keep an open heart because it can be very revealing what I received. Today's topic is on love, sex, and addictions. And now I'd like you to listen to the following statement. Listen to it like you've never listened to anything before. And really, really open your heart to it. All addictions stem from not knowing the difference between love and sex. But if you listen to your heart, now you begin to see the sense of it, how clear it is. Because only when the two become one, by knowing their difference and how they need each other or complete each other, it is then that we reach balance and health. Another thing that most people are not aware of, but is something that I'm quite well versed in, is that the body contains 7 energy centers. The root chakra, which is the security chakra, the sexual chakra, is one of the most powerful in the body. And if that is closed, which it is unfortunately in most people, there is no chance of ever attaining enlightenment or waking up. So let's go into it. You are a human being. The human is sexual, 100%. Sensual, and the being is love, and the two when integrated we reach what is called wholeness, you see, which we call fullness of being. Now let's talk about the root chakra. I don't want to go into the chakras because then it gets a little bit too complicated, but I'm assuming that most of you are quite aware of these energy centers. You are, right? All of you?
Right.
Right, okay, so that's great. Okay, and most of you on the internet are listening. Okay, so the sex is highly stifled through suppression. We have been brought up many years by our religions, our bringing, parental training, that sex is dirty, sex is a hush-hush word, etc., etc., and that's part of our evolution. But now we'll find that most problems occur from the suppression of the sexual expression. And when it is suppressed, the actually root chakra, which creates the full functioning of the chakras, because it starts from the lower part and it builds up to complete the human being, it gets closed when there is suppression. Now suppression means that this is a taboo word. Do you understand? And for a long time this has been that way. You know, I was brought up in a religion that told me that sex is sin and you don't do it unless you're gonna have children, blah blah blah. Of course we're not the same mentality now, but still it has stayed within our psychic. It has stayed with our psyche. Okay? Nature, so that we actually are not free enough in that area. And now you know what I mean by sexual suppression? If there are any questions, please ask. Okay? It is simply thinking that it's not natural. And remember that sexuality is the most natural thing there is. It's just like having a girl reach puberty and tell her, now don't think about boys, which is impossible. Okay? So in other words, it is the most natural function. Another thing that has happened too is indulgence. Because of our evolution and we want to be free, we have reached what is called a sexual revolution. And this started, I believe, in the 60s or 70s, didn't it? And it has now reached a point where pornography is no longer outlawed. It is perfectly within the law. And so many people are getting addicted to that. So now we have suppression on one hand and indulgence in the other. And both are not healthy because they're both out of balance. But you see, we will not understand what balance is until we understand what love is, because through not understanding love that we misconstrue sex and also create addictions. See, when we talk about love, people often think of just human love. And the human part has to be experienced because that is the reason we are born human in the first place. Okay? The human has to be experienced fully. And there is nothing wrong in experiencing anything that is human. But the thing is that there have been so many rules and conditions through time that we have, again, suppressed, and suppression leads to indulgence. I recall, you know, when I did a little bit of research, because when I was a child I was abused by a priest sexually. And that was very good, because when I forgiven the priest and started to learn why he did what he did later on as a teenager, I began to understand what I never understood before. See, Pope Gregorio was a very serious man. Hundreds of years ago, he banned sex from the priests, even if they were married. And they were to be celibate. And because of that, many perversions came into being. And it's been so well known that priests had abused boys to the point where the Pope was receiving so many complaints that there was nothing he could do. Because you cannot throw a priest out of priesthood, then you have no priest at all. Okay? But of course it cannot change. We cannot make sudden changes in things as delicate as that. Anyway, and I don't have anything against that. I'm just pointing out things that I have researched and I've come to know through experience. But now let's understand love. You see, love is an emptiness. Love is oneness. Love is God. Love is spirit. Love is nothingness. But when it is experienced as fullness. And it is that misunderstanding of love that we have misconstrued the relationship of sex and love, between sex and love. How shall I explain this? See, what is an addiction? An addiction is a feeling that we want to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. And the reason we want to do that is because we as humans want to feel loved, but to us it interprets itself as, you know, in a sexual expression. But we cannot experience love until we experience our emptiness. Name me a person who hasn't felt empty at some point or another in their life. And I don't think there is one. Because emptiness is love. When it is fully experienced, it is experienced as fullness of being. See, this is something most people are not aware of. There is no... See, when we feel empty of heart, it is because we are starved for love. And because of that starvation, what do? We try to fill it. But we try to fill it through pleasure. Got it? Now, when I talk about addictions, I'm not talking about drinking alcohol or gambling or you know, pornography or things like that, physical. I'm talking about psychological addiction. Psychological addiction is thinking you're not good enough, and you carry it in everything you do, in every expression. And you might go to psychologists, you might have treatments, but you keep carrying it. Because it is in your root chakra, okay? It is embedded in you. This type of addiction. Addiction, you see, is very, very strong. Psychological addiction is just as strong as drinking. It's just as strong as drug addiction. And so when this addiction says to you, I'm not good enough, there is something wrong with me, I don't measure up, I don't deserve love, this is an addiction. Because it repeats over and over again. You go through a period feeling okay, and then it comes back. What's wrong? You know, it keeps falling back. That's what an addiction does. It's got you in its grip. See, and when it has you in its grip, then you begin to believe that this is the way you are. Okay? But the reason this has happened, this addiction has happened, is because we don't understand love. See, you talk about love and people immediately think of sex. That doesn't mean it's divorced from it. But love itself is a nothing. Because it is everything. Are you with me so far? The two opposites meet. If love is everything, then it is also nothing. And if it is nothing, then it's everything. Because there's nothing that is apart from it. There's nothing that is separate from love. And so our nature is love. If we do not understand that, then we always live from a state of feeling not only empty, but that we're missing something, which of course comes up to the same thing. So we try to fill it, and we try to fill it with anything that gives us a temporary pleasure. You see? And a temporary pleasure becomes so enticing that when we are out of it, because it's only temporary, it only lasts for a short while, just like masturbation, for example. You know, you get so addicted to it, watching pornography, that you want to do it most of the time. When it becomes an addiction, when it becomes an addiction, it becomes so strong that you almost cannot even give it up, just like drug addiction, just like alcoholism. But there is one thing that will help you to understand, is that when you realize your nature is love. And when you understand that, then you understand something so beautiful, that nothing is outside of that love. Absolutely nothing. You see, absolutely nothing that can happen in life as a human that is outside of love, because it is a oneness. But if you see it as an emptiness and you run away from it, if you try to escape it, then of course what happens is that you exacerbate it, you make it worse. You see, and so the need to escape that feeling of emptiness becomes even stronger. And before we know it, it escalates into a dysfunction. Okay, are you with me so far? Mm-hmm. You were understanding this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so, but if you understand what love is, okay, and love is the wholeness that we are, love is a totality. There is nothing or anything outside of love. And everything is love, even thinking negative thoughts. If you accept that as part of a need for love, there's nothing for you to do, nothing to change that thing. It will change by itself. If you realize that you are love itself. And incidentally, that's how the root chakra opens up. It opens up because the root chakra, which is at the base of the spine, in the Garden of Eden it was mentioned as the serpent tempting Adam and Eve, you know, but it's a story allegory, and it's very good as far as that is concerned. And the root chakra opens up when we start to trust that we are love. So this means that no matter what worries or temptations you go through, it doesn't matter, because God will take care of you. God is life. God is love. God is your wholeness. God is your being. So this means that if you totally trust that because the root chakra is your security, it is your survival. The moment you begin to trust life itself, that life will take care of you. And when I say life, I'm talking about oneness, which is God, okay? Which is love itself. When you trust that completely, that very complete trust opens up the chakra. The moment it opens up the chakra, we begin to have experiences. wow, this happened, I experienced light, I experienced this, I experienced that. What happens is that when it opens up, it actually lights up the Sushumna. It's an energy that goes up along the spine. And you can feel this incredible joy and ecstasy. And that is you. That is the love in you coming alive. But if that love is not released, what happens? It turns to sex. I have had so many emails. Like recently a woman wrote me up and she said, Burt, I'm so heartbroken. I can't keep a relationship. And then I meet a man and then he looks at other women or does this. I'm heartbroken. And I love him so much. I'm so in love, you know. And how can I write her back and says, that's not love. That's sexual addiction. Because sexual addiction is very misconstrued for love. Love can never suffer because love has no ego. You see? And that is something that we miss. When you love someone, totally love them, you're happy even if you're not with them. You're happy for them if you know they are happy. See, because love is a total giving. Love is a oneness. Love has nothing to do with selfish taking. It is completely outside the box of our ego. You see, it is complete. And so, so when we have love, and then we make love, which is sexual love, that's heaven. Because we both experience the human and the being in its best form. You see? And it's one of the beauties of life. All great poetry and all great art is an expression of this oneness of both human and being. Who was it? There's a beautiful writer. He's incredible. He writes poetry on love. You must know. What's his name?
Rumi.
Rumi! Ah, very good. I think he's one of the most beautiful writers when it comes to this. He's so explicit and so direct. You're aware of Rumi, right?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. So, where do we go from here? Okay, so we're understanding addiction. Addiction is a need to fill a hole in you. Okay, so anything will do. Pornography is just one. Drinking is just another. Gambling is just another. You know, feeling restless, listless, nervous, not knowing what to do, often bored. These are all closed chakra. But it doesn't know how to open itself up because it keeps getting caught in its own turmoil, in its own need. Change me. My mind is so busy. What can I do to stop it? That very needing to stop the mind is the chaotic mind itself. Because what is a chaotic mind? What is a restless mind? It is fighting your own emptiness. See, we all feel empty because that is love. Empty means you think you are personal apart from others. You see? And I know what emptiness is in its lonely state, because when I was a teenager I was very lonely. But when I understood it and experienced it, because the human is to be experienced fully and completely as it is. You know, some people say, Burt, you often talk about human being and you make me think that the human is bad and the being is good. No, no, no. No, they are the stages. The human and the being both need to integrate. And our human experience is a necessary part that will take us all the way to the infinity. It is the human part, yes, it's all imagination. Think of sex for a moment. It's all imagination. All of it. All of it. You know, I had quite an experience many years ago. I went to Reg Beach in Vancouver, and I'm very happy about Reg Beach because now people are walking around naked and just like free as children, and they're playing, and it's become so free. But you know, it's a funny thing, you know, after you spend all day being there, you know, let's assume you spend all the day there, being there, it becomes as natural as seeing people with clothes on. See? And then you go upstairs, you go back to the city, and you see people dressed, and in your mind, you want to undress them. So, so this is all imagination, okay? But when you understand that the human is imagination and you begin to enjoy it and experience it, because to experience your imagination develops not only your talent, but your creativity, your joy, your fullness, you see? So, are there any questions at this point? Is that very clear? Okay. And you know that what an addiction is, eh? Okay. It's a need to fill an emptiness that doesn't exist. And if you try to fill it, you get lonelier and lonelier and more entrenched. But if you allow that emptiness to be, if you allow yourself to experience it, it becomes a fullness immediately. So now I wanted to know if you have any questions, because what I'd like to discuss next is how do we heal addictions. And incidentally, when you heal the addictions, how many people are addicted? Everybody who hasn't realized they are love. If you haven't realized that your nature is love, you are addicted in one form or another, because you are needing this or that, and you're getting hooked, because the moment you find something you like, well, wow, this is giving me some enjoyment. I want it again and again and again, and then after a while you're going to do without it. Okay? Now you might say, but Burt, you mentioned that addiction can be a negative mind. Addictions can be thinking I'm not good enough. How is that a pleasure to fill an emptiness? Okay, I ask you, how is that a pleasure to fill an emptiness? Is negative thinking a pleasure?
It's juice.
Hmm?
It's juice.
It's?
Juice. It's juicing the ego.
Very good. Excellent. Yes, it is a pleasure. People says, I want to get rid of my negative mind. Oh, no, you don't. You enjoy being negative because it strengthens your identity that you think you want to have. You see? So when a person is addicted, they don't really want to get rid of their addiction. They want to keep on thinking that way because that is the way to assert. See, somebody said to me, Burt, I don't enjoy negative thinking. And then they say, you know, but if negative thinking was to be gone, what is left? You see, they can't see that in their emptiness lies their fullness. If you can understand this, it took me 27 years to understand it, so I can understand if you don't get it in the beginning. I'm talking on the internet here, okay? But when you begin to understand that your fullness is your emptiness and your emptiness is your fullness, okay? Buddha talked a lot about emptiness as being everything, and the shunyata or nirvana, which is the joy of emptiness, which is the fullness of being. Picture the following. Picture a child when he doesn't know he has a body yet. And he doesn't even have an ego yet. And he starts to walk. Did you ever watch a toddler just walking with their joy and their exhilaration, their in ecstasy? Where does it come from? There is no ego, there is no personality yet, there is no body consciousness yet, so who is it that's experiencing that? You see? It is the pure consciousness itself being empty of anything because it is full. You see? So you cannot separate the two. Your emptiness, when it is fully experienced, is your fullness. Now, having understood this far, let's go into the healing of addictions. And although this sounds like a practice to do, it isn't really. It all comes when we understand it. There are 4 things that are necessary to deal with the healing of addictions. One is called responsibility. Now, responsibility does not mean a heaviness here. I have to be responsible. It has nothing to do. But it has to do with, hey, I have to be responsible. Ah, that has to do with that. You see the difference? One is, I'm responsible. The other one is, no, I'm responsible. See, responsibility means the ability to respond to the moment. Got it? All you have is the moment. And when you are responsible to the moment as it is, so you feel empty. And that empty can be gut-wrenching if you don't understand it. It can be quite, you know, debilitating. But if you stay with it because you want to be responsible, responding to what you are feeling in the moment, okay, that takes you to the next 3. Now, understand the next 3. Once you have responsibility, the ability to respond to the moment, whatever is happening in your human self. 1, consciousness. Consciousness is made up of what we call, you know, the thought processes, you know, like sometimes like a cloud formation that has made up your self-image, the way you see life, the way you see people, the way you see things. This is all made up of your, I call it cloud formation. I don't know what else to call it. It's the images that we have made real in our consciousness. Each one of us has that. We call it self-image. We call it the image of the world. We call it how we see the world, how we see life. And how we see life has nothing to do with truth. It is how we see life. Okay? And the moment you accept that this is all imagination, you've taken a big step. A big, big step. The next is awareness. Now, awareness is not consciousness in the sense of having thoughts, emotions, and feelings. Awareness is. I am aware. You know what I mean? Like, you're aware without thinking anything. You can be fully aware. You know, a child might not be thinking, but he's aware. You know, he's there. Are you with me when I say what awareness is?
Yes.
Okay, you're aware. Okay, good. Now, in order to train that awareness is called witnessing. Now, this comes where the healing comes in, and it can be quite fast. I have seen some people who are very, very bright, very intelligent, very aware, and actually change from talking to them about witnessing. Even in 2 or 3 sessions, they begin to transform. I'm not saying this is the case in every, you know, this is all the cases, but it has happened. Okay, so this is what witnessing does. It brings a healing, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Okay, witnessing is when you employ your awareness and you look at something as if it is separate from you, but at the same time, no, it is you. Okay, let's say you're feeling a sensation in your knee, a pain, okay, at the moment. Now you can feel the pain, but then you're identifying the pain as you, and it's my knee. And you also identify with the fact that you might be worried that something serious is happening there. So many things might be happening there. If you leave it as pure awareness, okay, you're already on the right track. But if you employ the witness, you can almost have instant healing. Now, the witness means that you feel the pain. It's as if it's happening to someone else. It's an unbiased, detached observation. Okay, so that's called the witness. Now, the witness, everybody is aware because there's only one awareness, there's only oneness, there's only God. And that is pure awareness because it is self-recognizing and self-recognizing and organizing. Okay, so So that's the nature of awareness. Now, when you make that awareness and train it to be a witness, which comes through meditation, practicing meditation, okay, bring the awareness into it, now you have healing power. Not only on yourself, but anyone that you meet. Because the greatest power that you have, there is nothing that can compare to it. It's the witnessing. And in time, in a few years' time, many people will be applying that as quantum healing. Because it's employing the witness when the actual healing comes. Even from ages-long conditioning, the witnessing can bring healing. How shall I explain witnessing? Can somebody else, do you understand what I'm talking about, witness? Now, those of you who understand, can you give an aphorism or an explanation? Maybe I'm missing the perfect example here. See, a witness is a detached observation, as if it's happening to somebody else. But yet, while at the same time, even though you're misidentified or disidentified from it, yet you know it is just a happening. It is not to you or anybody else, it's just a happening. It's just, you're witnessing it. You're unbiased, you're an observer of it. But you're not identified with it, you're not caught in it. You're not making it personal at all. Yeah.
Could I ask, is witnessing the same or similar to a miracle?
Yes, as a matter of fact, many miracles have been attributed to witnessing, and then as you go into it, you'll find that miracles are actually our nature, just like A Course in Miracles, of course, talks about. But these miracles are happening all the time when we start witnessing. See, because when you witness something, and witness means that there's no personal person, you see, it's just you see it as it actually is, without personal identification. And when you do that, a miracle happens, because it's also instant forgiveness. You see? So this is, you don't identify. You see, every time you identify with something, you're back to consciousness, which is not wrong. But then you're making it a limitation, making it imagination, making it real. When you go to witnessing, you are looking and seeing that which truly is, which is just imagination. The world that you experience is simply the world that you experience, and everybody experiences differently. And when you witness that, wow, can you imagine how expansive you become? You see? So through witnessing also the root chakra opens. Because through witnessing you'll start to understand that you're not as personal as you thought you were. You're not an individual separate from others. It is all one life. And when that becomes very strong, you begin to trust life. It just comes as a natural process. You see, and when you trust life, life will take care of you. And when that happens, you begin to see and experience things in a whole new way. Okay, now there is a meditation that you can do that will strengthen the witness. And the Buddha gave it as mindfulness. But very few people actually know how to practice mindfulness. So for example, let's say right now you were to become very still and watch your breath. The first thing you will do ordinarily is that you try to control the breath, but you don't know you're doing it. Are you with me? This is very subtle. You watch the breath, and before you know it, you are breathing. Remember, you don't do any breathing. Breathing is being done to you. Okay, you're with me so far? Okay, you're being breathed. Breathing is always there. But you see, the moment you start watching your breath, you start doing the breathing. Okay, that is, the control is still there. You become aware of that. Then you take it one step further until you actually see the breathing taking place without you. Now that starts being witnessing. It is happening all without you. The moment you can actually witness a process without you being there, that's witnessing. Now miracles happen, yes. You begin to open up in ways you never dreamed of. Because another thing happens. Love comes into being. Because love is first experienced as emptiness. As long as you make love into something, you cannot experience it. But when you see the emptiness of love, which means, because when you think of emptiness, you see everything, includes everything. Because everything is just, you know, being. Well, the moment you allow that, in other words, you begin to see that, then you begin to experience a fullness. And that fullness comes in ways that is so subtle. That is so subtle. You're walking down the street and all of a sudden you're in love with every little puppy, every little child, every old man, you begin to feel this fullness happening, you see? And that fullness is because you were able to experience. Thank you. Okay, so are there any questions here?
Is there a difference between witnessing and pure awareness?
Not really. Not really. Pure awareness is witnessing. But when you say pure awareness, people always get the idea that I'm going to be pure aware. Whereas the witnessing makes you feel as if I am witnessing something outside of me, which I'm not identified with, even though it is within me. Got it? So, but witnessing doesn't happen automatically. You have to be trained in it. And that's why meditation, watching your breath, or watching any process of mind can be so incredible, you see. And then you begin to notice other things, you see, when you do this simple meditation every day and, you know, you're eating, and you always took it for granted that eating, I do the eating. And then you realize you don't do the eating at all. All you do is put food in your mouth. It is digested, assimilated, distributed, all done by itself. It knows what to do, the places to nourish the parts of the body. Everything is taken care of for you, and you begin to notice. So this is how you automatically start going deeper and deeper and deeper. You see? And this very depth of understanding becomes, again, your ability to start, you know, to witness more and more and more. You begin to understand things you never understood before. You see? And your whole body, and remember, you see, that to be body conscious. Now what happens when people indulge a lot in sexual, there are certain things that happen. For example, I have a lot of men writing me that they are, you know, masturbating all the time and they can't stop. And so they ask me, you know, what actually happens. You see, when you place too much emphasis on the body without love connected with it, you make the body and you objectify it. The moment you start objectifying the body, what happens is that when you see people, you don't see people, you see bodies. And you cannot understand them, you cannot see their depth, you cannot see their beauty, you cannot see, you know, like when you look at a human being and you see their depth, their spirit, their energy, it's a very moving experience. And you begin to feel this love, you know, and it doesn't matter what a person eventually looks like or anything. You begin to feel this love and connection. But that, when you are body conscious, you objectify people, then you're no longer capable of going beyond the body. You see, because you're stuck to the body. And when you're stuck to the body, you lose all depth. When you lose all depth, you live shallow. When you live shallow, you can never be happy, because happiness comes from depth. Okay, happiness comes from that fullness, from the emptiness that now has become full. You see?
The sexual attraction is separation.
Yes, yes, but you cannot help it. Sexual attraction you cannot help. We all have it. We're attracted not only energetically, we are attracted to frequency, vibrations. Maybe you've known them in a past life. So many things are involved through sexual attraction. But if you see it only as a sexual attraction and the love will not flourish there, will not move, then of course it remains shallow and you cannot go deep enough to experience.
If you experience oneness with everything, do you still have sexual attraction?
Oh yeah.
Because I thought I remember reading Ramana Maharshi said that sexual attraction is separateness, and oneness, you no longer have that sexual tension.
There is no sexual tension.
Or tension and attractiveness is a tension, though.
Oh, there is tension in it, but sexual attraction. Remember, we're talking about Ramana Maharshi here.
Yeah.
He never had sex.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that he was celibate. It means that he wasn't interested. Take Jesus. Jesus was married for 15 years to Mary Magdalene. It was taken out of the Bible, but I did some research. Did you know that Jesus was married for 15 years to Mary Magdalene? Yeah. But they took it out because they didn't want to mention Jesus with sex. See what I mean? So, but these are things that you don't have to take Bert's word for it. Do your own research, and you'll find that the lost teachings of Jesus, which are 18 years taken out of the Bible, is because the church wanted to have power over the people and control the beliefs. You see, and so. But yeah, sexual attraction will always be there, but when you reach a level of Ramana Maharshi, you're not a human anymore. So it's a totally different level now, you see. He lived in a body, you know, but he was an immensely high being, and you know, they are very rare.
Yeah.
Jesus, mind you, Jesus reached a very high level, and so did Buddha. But as far as I'm concerned, and of course you don't have to take my word for it, I feel that no matter how realized you are, the sexual attraction will always be there in somewhere. Okay? But at least there is love with it. You know. So, are there any questions?
Well, you said that there were 4 principles.
Right. Okay. Responsibility, consciousness. Then consciousness, you go into awareness. Okay. Now awareness is a little more refined because you are pinpointing the very nature of being. The very nature of being is pure awareness. Okay. And then you start to witness by practicing, so to speak. See? And then you sharpen that awareness. Witnessing always sharpens awareness. Awareness everybody has. When you understand awareness and bring it to the witnessing point, now you have sharpened it. Now the witnessing will start teaching you things you never ever thought. Like, for example, people ask me, they say, Burt, you talk to the Holy Spirit. Well, how does he talk and what does he say? This is a hard thing to explain. See, I'll say, well, when I have a subject, it's just like I pick out a room that is dark. And I choose it as a dark so that I don't have to think about it when I'm in the room. Okay? And then when I'm in the room, very, very quiet, it's just like putting on the light very slowly. And as I put on the light, I'm no longer struggling trying to find my way around and I don't know where anything is. All of a sudden, the light starts making everything clear. So in a short while, the subject becomes very clear. But I have to go through that process, which takes a few seconds, in which I quiet the mind long enough for me to see what my heart already knows. Are you with me so far? So my connection with the Holy Spirit, which you all are, which is the I am of you, I'm not doing anything, you know, extraordinary. When you connect, in your heart you know things. You see, you know, just like I said it many times before, you know, if you're deeply depressed and you ask yourself, how would I prefer to feel instead of this? Immediately the heart will say, I prefer to feel happy. The heart always knows, but you have to give it a chance to tell you. Because all the time, we don't want to listen to the heart. We want to listen to our mind, what it tells us, the ideas, the conditioning. You see, how we've been conditioned to believe. But if you become quiet enough, you know, keep the mind still and listen. It's very clear. It's very clear. When the term came to me that all addictions stem from the difference between love and sex, it was so clear at that moment. I never thought of it before, but before that, but it came so clear that I said, how could I miss it? It is so obvious. You see? So this is how the knowledge will start coming from your own heart. And then you reach the intuitive heart. The intuitive heart opens up, you begin to listen to it, and it can tell you anything that you want to know. But you have to quiet the mind from its conditioned ideas of who you think you are or who you think the world is or whatever. You just enter emptiness, knowing that that emptiness is the fullness of you, is the completion of you. You see? And that's why all great beings have been able to enter silence and stillness and get knowledge which is foreign to most people. Not because they've achieved something fantastic that those other people don't have, but it's just that they've disciplined themselves enough or have believed enough or trusted, and I like the word trust, trusted enough to listen to their own heart. And the heart will teach you everything. And you'll come to know beyond a shadow of a doubt. I had a man just send me a video from Germany. And he said, Burt, he said, I keep going to Facebook and they keep talking about you must be positive and it's, you know, and to get rid of the ego and so, you know, instead of fear, keep choosing positive love all the time, blah, 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 blah. And he said, well, I don't agree with that because if I keep choosing the positive, to me that's effort. That's not right. What do you feel? Was he correct?
Yeah.
Yes. You don't need to choose positive. You don't need to try to be kind. You don't need to try to be loving. All you need to do is know you are love. And then let that love act through you. If that love in the moment wants you to be a little bit sad, that's okay. You see? If that love right now wants you to be a little bit out of sorts, fine. You see, don't try to be positive. Don't try to be loving. You are love, and that's enough. By knowing you are love, the human is groomed. You see, the one thing that the human doesn't know is that you are love, because it thinks of emptiness as something to avoid or run away from. And it sees it as a great fear. Did you know that love is our greatest fear? We want what we fear the most. No, sorry, we are afraid of the very thing we want most. Because love is oneness. You see? There's no person in it, yeah.
Yeah, and we're afraid of losing our identity.
Yeah, that's right, of losing our identity.
Yeah.
But our identity is love. Yeah. Can it be greater than that? You know, your identity is love. And when you know that you are love, it's not something you're going to achieve, it's not something you're going to get after Satsang. It's something you already are now. And when you realize that completely, It doesn't matter how you feel, it doesn't matter what thoughts go through your mind, it doesn't matter what is happening. I am love, and it's okay. Now we are making the human and the being integrated into a whole. This is when our sexuality becomes a free-flowing expression of God. It's no longer should I or shouldn't I, there's no longer rules or anything, there's only love. And when you know you are love and move with that love, everything is taken care of. Now the root chakra has opened up and you're swimming in that glory, you see. So, are there any questions?
Just one more quick point about the witness. Because I think there can be some misinterpretation about that. The witness can become like a thought position. There could be like a thought that I'm witnessing this. And so you stand from that position and you're like, okay, here I am. But it's still all happening in mind.
Yes.
And
very good.
And there you can see that it's not that by inquiring into can this witness be seen. And if you can see the witness, that position, then obviously you're not it. Yeah.
Very nice. Yes, and I'm glad you brought that out. Now this is where the inquiry comes in, okay? And where the witnessing is purified. Like I said, we need to practice it. In the beginning we play with it, just like watching the breath. And you think you're watching the breath and all the time you're controlling it. You don't realize you're controlling it, it's so subtle. But you inquire. You see, sometimes, you know, a lot of thoughts go through your mind and then you stop for a moment, and who's thinking these thoughts? See, when a thought comes to you, who's the thinker of that thought? We're stumped, aren't we? When you get stumped, now you know you're inquiring well. Okay, because you enter a void. You enter an emptiness that you cannot deal with anymore, because the mind has no way of understanding it. But that's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. You see, and you're okay with that. Now when you keep going, oh, you're okay with that, and you keep going and going and going. You see, I'm so glad you brought that up. You see, so these are questions, intelligent questions that take us deeper, because I cannot cover it all possibly, you know. But this is it, when inquiry comes in, and then it takes us deeper into witnessing until you disappear. But when you disappear, you don't know you disappeared. Because if you know you disappeared, then you haven't disappeared. You see? And you enter a state of being. And it is that state that starts teaching you more than any book or any teacher or anyone can ever teach you. You begin to know things in ways that you can't put in words. See? So remember, you are love. You're nothing but love. And when you live from that, knowing. Now you might say, okay, and Boris might raise this question too. Well, how do you feel when you know you are love? How do you feel when you know you are love? How are you feeling?
Peaceful.
Okay, let's go a little deeper than that. How do you know you are feeling it? That you know that you are love. How do you know that?
I would say there's like a joy or a fullness.
Okay, but how do you know that this is, like, it's true, that's an expression of it, but how do you know that you are love?
Because you're it. Because you're aware.
This is very subtle, feel it. How do you know you are love?
But you don't know.
You don't know.
No.
And even though you don't know, how else can it be? Now you know. Got it? You cannot know, no. But you know that that cannot be any other way. Okay? So that's how it works.
But when you feel that oneness with everything, those moments when you feel that, you can feel the oneness with everything.
Yes. Yes.
And it isn't like you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm love." You know, it's just a feeling of complete oneness. It maybe only lasts for a minute or two on those occasions, but when that happens, it's not like you actually articulate to yourself that I am love, you know.
Right.
But
right.
but when we go to talk about it afterwards, you know,
Yeah.
that's when we introduce that kind of
That's why you introduce that feeling, right?
those words.
Yeah.
But
But what I'm talking about here is to say to yourself, to keep suggesting to yourself at this point that I am love. And if you keep trusting that, you might not realize it yet. It might be just repeating words. But the point is that when you do it a few times, I am love. I'm in conflict in this relationship, this is happening, that is happening, but I am love. Okay? You still don't know it. But if you persist in it, you open up a doorway in which that feeling starts to come to prove to you how else can I be. Are you understanding what I'm getting at? You see? So it's important to keep yourself open to the fact that love is all there is, even though you might not know it now, but there is something, even as you listen right now. This makes sense. This is true. You know it is true. You see? And so you start living from it even though you are not quite sure, but in moments of, in a conflict situation or an unhappy situation, you are able to say, I am love, and even though you might still not completely believe it, but there is a part in you that knows its importance, okay? Then something starts to happen. It becomes stronger and stronger until you come to the point, but it cannot be any other way.
it's that trust.
That's right. You awaken that trust. Yeah. You can be anything else. That's not possible. Well, the moment you reach that point, now you know. You see, you come to know. But at the same time, when you are feeling it in its utmost, there is no you who's feeling it. You're just it. And that is the beauty.
And there's a part of you that's trying to remind you all the time that you aren't it too. And we all know what that part is.
Yeah, yeah. But it's okay to keep reminding yourself. It's okay to keep reminding yourself that you are it. You see, because at that point, you're not trying to convince yourself, you are seeing that you cannot be anything else. Because you're either fear or love. But hell, you know you're not fear. You see?